Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real tonight, something honest, something that might make some of us uncomfortable. But truth has never been comfortable. A man is in a happy marriage until he comes across a love that makes him forget why he promised forever. That's not because his marriage was weak, but because temptation is loud and discipline is quiet. Marriage often feels safest when everything is familiar, when routines settle in and life finds a rhythm that feels dependable. A man in a happy marriage usually believes that happiness is permanent, not because he is careless, but because comfort can create an illusion of immunity. He assumes that love, once secured, no longer needs constant protection. Yet happiness is not a shield against temptation. It is often the very condition that makes temptation dangerous. When life is stable, when there is something valuable to lose, the test becomes real. Temptation does not arrive announcing destruction. It arrives disguised as understanding, excitement, or admiration. It comes quietly, often at a time when a man feels confident in his role as a husband, provider, or leader. He may not be looking for trouble, but trouble has a way of finding those who believe they are beyond it. A casual conversation turns into laughter. Laughter turns into emotional connection, and suddenly the mind starts entertaining comparisons that never existed before. This is where the real test begins, not in action, but in thought. A happy marriage creates expectations of trust and emotional safety. Because of this trust, a man may lower his guard, believing his intentions alone are enough to keep him loyal. But intentions are not enough when emotions are stimulated. Attraction has a way of bypassing logic. It does not ask whether a man is married or fulfilled. It only asks whether he feels seen, desired, or validated in a new way. The danger lies not in noticing someone else, but in allowing that notice to grow into curiosity. Temptation tests commitment by questioning memory. It makes a man forget the years of effort, the sacrifices made together, the quiet loyalty that doesn't shout for attention. A new connection feels effortless because it hasn't been tested by time, stress, or responsibility. There are no bills, no arguments, no shared wounds. It feels light because it carries no weight. This illusion convinces a man that happiness could be easier somewhere else, when in truth, he is only seeing a fragment, not the full picture. Commitment is not proven during calm seasons. It is proven when desire pulls in another direction. A man may love his wife deeply and still feel drawn to someone new. This does not make him evil, but it does make him accountable. The real question is not why temptation appears, but what he chooses to do when it does. Every marriage will face moments where emotions are challenged. The difference between loyalty and regret is often decided in silence, long before anything physical happens. Temptation also exposes unresolved gaps within a man himself. Sometimes it highlights needs he has failed to communicate or address within his marriage. Instead of confronting discomfort honestly, it feels easier to escape into fantasy. But avoidance never heals. It only delays pain and multiplies it. What begins as a private emotional indulgence can slowly erode respect, trust, and self-worth. A man may think he is managing temptation, but temptation is patient. It grows stronger the longer it is entertained. A happy marriage does not collapse in one dramatic moment. It weakens through small compromises, unchecked thoughts, and emotional distance. Temptation succeeds when boundaries are unclear. It thrives where discipline is replaced by justification. A man tells himself he deserves to feel alive, understood, admired. But real maturity understands that feeling alive should not come at the cost of destroying what was built with love and effort. True commitment requires awareness. It requires recognizing that happiness is not self-sustaining. Love must be guarded, especially when it feels secure. Temptation is not a sign that marriage is failing. It is a reminder that marriage is valuable. The greater the value, the greater the test. A man remains truly happy in marriage, not by avoiding temptation entirely, but by choosing again and again not to let temptation rewrite his priorities. Love is often misunderstood as something that happens to us rather than something we practice. Many people believe love arrives suddenly, stays effortlessly, and survives on emotion alone. In reality, love in marriage is a daily decision, repeated quietly through actions, patience, and restraint. A man may feel deeply connected to his spouse, yet love is not proven by feelings alone. It is proven by what he chooses when feelings fluctuate, when boredom appears, and when temptation introduces an alternative narrative. Every day presents small moments where love is either strengthened or neglected. Choosing love can look ordinary, listening instead of dismissing, staying present instead of drifting, honoring boundaries instead of testing them. These choices rarely feel dramatic, but they accumulate into trust. Love survives not because passion remains intense, but because commitment remains intentional. When a man forgets that love must be chosen, he begins to believe it should always feel effortless, and that belief sets him up for disappointment. Emotions change with time, stress, and routine. The excitement that once came naturally may fade into comfort, and comfort can be mistaken for loss. When a man expects love to constantly stimulate him, he begins searching for emotion instead of nurturing connection. This is where temptation gains power. A new person can awaken feelings that seem lost, not because they are more compatible, but because novelty amplifies emotion. Without wisdom, a man may interpret this stimulation as proof that something is missing in his marriage. Choosing love means understanding that feelings are unreliable guides. Attraction can rise unexpectedly, even in a happy marriage. That attraction does not cancel love, it challenges it. Love as a choice requires discipline, the ability to pause and remember what is at stake. It requires a man to remind himself that emotions are temporary, but consequences are lasting. What feels thrilling today may feel empty tomorrow, while what is built slowly holds value over time. Daily choice also means choosing honesty over escape. Instead of turning outward when emotional needs feel unmet, love calls for communication inward. A man who chooses love speaks about his frustrations, listens to his partner's perspective, and accepts responsibility for his role in the relationship's growth or stagnation. It is easier to fantasize than to communicate, easier to be admired by someone new than to rebuild intimacy with someone familiar. But ease is not the measure of love, effort is. Love requires sacrifice, and sacrifice often goes unnoticed. The absence of applause does not mean the absence of meaning. A man choosing love understands that loyalty is not rewarded instantly, but it preserves dignity and peace. Walking away from temptation may feel like loss in the moment, yet it protects the deeper joy of trust and self-respect. Love grows strongest when it is chosen despite the availability of alternatives. Choosing love daily also means choosing memory over impulse. It means remembering shared history, mutual struggles, and the promises made when no one else was present. Impulse lives in the present moment, but love honors the past and safeguards the future. A man who chooses love sees beyond immediate gratification and considers the ripple effects of his decisions on families, children, and his own integrity. Love as a choice matures a person. It transforms romance into responsibility and desire into devotion. It teaches patience when passion cools and humility when ego seeks validation elsewhere. A man who chooses love daily understands that real connection is not measured by excitement, but by consistency. He does not expect love to carry him. He carries love through intention. When love is treated as a feeling, it becomes fragile. When it is treated as a decision, it becomes resilient. Marriage does not fail because love disappears. It fails when people stop choosing it. A man remains fulfilled not by chasing emotion, but by committing to the quiet, repeated choice of honor in the bond he vowed to protect. Excitement has a powerful way of disguising itself as destiny. When something feels new, intense, and emotionally stimulating, it is easy to believe it carries deeper meaning than it actually does. Many men mistake excitement for a sign that they have discovered a greater truth about love, when in reality, excitement is simply the nervous system responding to novelty. In a happy marriage, life becomes familiar, predictable, and stable. That stability is not a flaw, but without awareness, it can make excitement elsewhere seem extraordinary. A man does not wake up intending to betray his marriage. He often begins by comparing feelings rather than actions. The latter feels lighter. The conversation feels effortless, and the attention feels validating. These sensations can be intoxicating, especially when daily responsibilities have dulled emotional intensity at home. Excitement whispers that happiness should always feel alive and urgent, and when marriage no longer provides that rush, a man may believe something essential is missing. What makes excitement dangerous is its selective nature. It highlights pleasure while hiding responsibility. A new connection does not involve conflict, compromise, or accountability. It exists in moments, not in reality. The absence of stress creates the illusion of compatibility. A man may think he has found someone who truly understands him, without realizing that understanding has never been tested by hardship or time. Excitement thrives in fantasy, not in endurance. Confusing excitement with destiny leads a man to rewrite his own story. He begins to question his marriage not based on its truth, but based on an emotional contrast that is unfair and incomplete. The mind exaggerates what is new and minimizes what is familiar. Loyalty begins to feel restrictive, not because it is wrong, but because excitement resents boundaries. In this space, justification replaces responsibility, and desire begins to speak louder than values. Excitement also feeds the ego. Being admired by someone new can make a man feel seen in ways he forgot he wanted. It can restore a sense of youth, importance, or power. But ego-driven connection is unstable. It depends on constant validation and collapses when admiration fades. A marriage, on the other hand, is built on acceptance, including flaws and failures. Mistaking excitement for destiny means choosing ego over growth. True love does not overwhelm the senses, it steadies them. It does not create urgency, it creates security. Destiny is not found in emotional intensity, but in shared commitment. A man who believes excitement is a sign risks abandoning a relationship that has depth for one that has only surface appeal. Excitement promises happiness without effort, but it cannot sustain meaning over time. As excitement grows, it narrows perspective. A man may stop seeing his spouse as a partner and begin seeing her as an obstacle to his feelings. This mental shift is where emotional betrayal begins. Even without physical action, the heart moves away from loyalty. Excitement encourages secrecy, and secrecy erodes respect. What once felt harmless starts demanding protection, and protection leads to distance at home. Understanding the difference between excitement and destiny requires maturity. Destiny is not impulsive. It does not demand secrecy or shortcuts. It aligns with integrity and does not require the destruction of others to exist. A man grounded in wisdom recognizes that excitement is temporary, while the consequences of following it can be permanent. He understands that losing emotional intensity does not mean losing love. It means love is transitioning into something deeper. Choosing not to act on excitement is not repression. It is discernment. It is the ability to feel without obeying. A man who learns this understands that self-control is not weakness, but strength. He allows excitement to pass without allowing it to rewrite his values. He chooses stability over stimulation, depth over drama, and commitment over curiosity. When excitement is mistaken for destiny, regret often follows. What once felt powerful becomes fragile under responsibility. The fantasy dissolves, leaving behind broken trust and unresolved guilt. A man who understands this truth protects his marriage not by denying excitement exists, but by refusing to let it define his choices. True loyalty is not revealed when life is calm and predictable. It is revealed when attraction challenges commitment. Moments of attraction are not moral failures, they are human experiences. What defines a person is not the feeling itself, but the response to it. A man in a committed relationship may encounter someone who awakens curiosity, admiration, or desire, and in that moment, loyalty is tested quietly without witnesses. The test is internal long before it becomes visible to others. Attraction has a way of simplifying reality. It focuses attention on what is appealing and filters out what is inconvenient. When a man feels drawn to someone new, he may temporarily lose sight of the complexity and depth of his existing relationship. This does not mean his marriage lacks value. It means attraction has narrowed his perception. Loyalty requires the ability to widen that perspective again, to remember context, history, and consequence. Proving loyalty is not about grand gestures. It is about restraint. It is the discipline to maintain boundaries even when emotions push against them. A man who understands loyalty recognizes that freedom does not mean acting on every feeling. True freedom is the ability to choose alignment with one's values over momentary satisfaction. Walking away from attraction may feel like loss, but it is actually an affirmation of character. Attraction tests honesty as much as fidelity. When a man begins hiding conversations, minimizing interactions, or justifying secrecy, loyalty is already under strain. Even if nothing physical happens, emotional distance begins to form. Loyalty demands transparency, not necessarily confession of every fleeting thought, but honesty with oneself about intentions. Self-deception is often the first step toward betrayal. Loyalty also requires empathy. It asks a man to imagine the emotional cost his actions could inflict on his partner. Attraction encourages self-focus, while loyalty requires other awareness. When a man remembers the trust placed in him, the vulnerability shared, and the life built together, he becomes less willing to risk that foundation for temporary pleasure. Empathy strengthens loyalty by reconnecting desire to responsibility. The presence of attraction does not mean love is gone. In many cases, it means the relationship has reached a stable phase where intensity has softened into reliability. This transition is natural, but without understanding, it can be misinterpreted as loss. Loyalty is the bridge that carries love through this transition. It allows affection to deepen rather than fracture under pressure. Loyalty is also a form of self-respect. A man who honors his commitments maintains integrity within himself. Acting against one's values creates internal conflict that erodes confidence and peace. Even if no one else ever knows, the self knows. Choosing loyalty preserves inner alignment, which is essential for long-term fulfillment. Attraction can make a man feel powerful, desired, and important. Loyalty reminds him that true worth is not measured by how many people want him, but by how faithfully he stands by his word. External validation fades quickly, but the respect earned through consistency endures. Loyalty builds a legacy of trust that outlasts fleeting admiration. Resisting attraction does not mean denying desire exists. It means refusing to give desire authority over decisions. A man can acknowledge attraction without feeding it. He can create distance, reinforce boundaries, and redirect energy back into his marriage. Loyalty becomes a practice, not a rule, strengthened through repeated conscious choices. Over time, loyalty reshapes attraction itself. When boundaries are honored, attraction loses its urgency. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. The mind returns to clarity, and the heart regains balance. A man who remains loyal through temptation discovers that commitment does not limit his happiness, it protects it. True loyalty is quiet. It does not seek recognition or applause. It is proven in moments when no one is watching and no reward is guaranteed. In choosing loyalty over attraction, a man affirms not only his marriage, but his identity as someone whose word has meaning. Temporary feelings are powerful precisely because they feel urgent, intense, and convincing in the moment. They arrive suddenly and demand attention, making long-term commitments seem distant and abstract. A man may feel swept up by emotion and believe that what he is experiencing is rare, meaningful, and impossible to ignore. Yet these feelings are often fleeting, shaped by circumstance rather than truth. When temporary emotions are given authority over permanent bonds, the damage can be irreversible. Marriage is built slowly through shared experiences, struggles, and quiet consistency. It represents years of emotional investment, trust, and mutual sacrifice. Temporary feelings, however, do not carry that weight. They exist in isolation, detached from responsibility. They thrive on imagination rather than reality. When a man allows momentary desire to compete with a lifelong promise, the comparison is unfair from the beginning. One is tested by time, the other has not yet been tested at all. The danger of temporary feelings lies in how convincing they feel. Emotion has the ability to rewrite logic. It can make a man question choices he once felt certain about. It can convince him that happiness has been missing, even if his life was once full of gratitude. These feelings exaggerate dissatisfaction and minimize appreciation. What once felt stable begins to feel dull, not because it lacks value, but because emotion craves stimulation, not stability. Temporary feelings often disguise themselves as truth. A man may believe he has finally found someone who understands him better, listens more deeply, or connects more naturally. But what he is experiencing is not depth. It is distance from responsibility. There are no shared burdens, no unresolved conflicts, no history of disappointment. The connection feels pure because it has not been challenged. This illusion can make permanent bonds seem heavy, when in reality, they are simply real. Permanent bonds require patience, compromise, and endurance. They involve seeing each other at their weakest and choosing to stay. Temporary feelings avoid this reality. They exist in ideal moments, carefully selected and emotionally curated. When a man allows these feelings to guide his decisions, he risks sacrificing something meaningful for something unproven. The loss is not immediate. It unfolds slowly as trust erodes and regret settles in. Temporary emotions also encourage impulsive decisions. They push urgency, making a man feel he must act before the feeling fades. This urgency is deceptive. Real love does not pressure. It allows time. Permanent bonds grow through reflection and intention, not haste. When decisions are made under emotional pressure, they often overlook consequences. Families are affected, trust is broken, and identities are fractured, all because a feeling demanded to be obeyed. Once permanent bonds are damaged, they cannot always be restored to their original state. Trust, once broken, becomes fragile. Even if forgiveness is offered, innocence is often lost. A moment of indulgence can create a lifetime of doubt. Temporary feelings do not stay to help rebuild what they destroy. They fade, leaving behind responsibility and regret. The excitement that once felt irresistible may disappear, but the consequences remain. Temporary feelings also distort self-perception. A man may believe he is acting authentically by following his emotions, but authenticity without accountability is incomplete. True authenticity includes honoring commitments and understanding the impact of one's actions. Acting on every feeling does not lead to freedom. It leads to instability. Permanent bonds provide grounding and identity, while temporary feelings pull a person away from who they promise to be. Wisdom lies in recognizing the nature of emotion. Feelings rise and fall. They are influenced by stress, boredom, attention, and novelty. Permanent bonds, on the other hand, are choices reinforced over time. They survive because they are protected, not because they are always emotionally intense. A man who understands this does not panic when emotions shift. He allows feelings to pass without allowing them to define his actions. Temporary feelings test maturity. They ask whether a man will sacrifice long-term peace for short-term pleasure. They challenge his ability to delay gratification and honor what he has built. When he chooses restraint, he strengthens his character. When he chooses impulse, he weakens the foundation of his life. In the end, temporary feelings reveal what a man values most. Permanent bonds do not demand perfection, they demand loyalty. Protecting them requires awareness, discipline, and respect for the future. A man who learns to see temporary feelings for what they are protects not only his marriage, but his integrity and sense of purpose. Wisdom in love is rarely loud or dramatic. It does not announce itself through intense emotion or urgent desire. Instead, it operates quietly through restraint, reflection, and self-control. Desire is powerful, immediate, and persuasive. It speaks in feelings and impulses, demanding satisfaction in the present moment. Discipline, on the other hand, speaks in consequences. It considers tomorrow while desire lives only for today. A man who confuses desire with truth often believes he is following his heart, when in reality he is surrendering his judgment. Desire is natural. It arises without permission and cannot be completely avoided. It responds to beauty, attention, admiration, and novelty. Discipline is not the absence of desire. It is the ability to experience desire without being ruled by it. Wisdom grows in the space between feeling and action. That space is where character is revealed. A man may feel strongly, but wisdom asks whether acting on that feeling aligns with his values, responsibilities, and promises. Desire narrows focus. It magnifies what is attractive and minimizes what is costly. In moments of desire, a man may overlook the emotional damage his actions could cause or the trust he risks breaking. Discipline widens perspective. It forces the mind to slow down and examine the full picture, including consequences that desire prefers to ignore. Wisdom is born when a man chooses to pause instead of react. Many mistakes in love are not caused by bad intentions, but by undisciplined emotions. Desire convinces a man that feelings must be honored immediately or they will be lost. Discipline understands that what is real does not disappear simply because it is delayed. If something cannot survive patience, it is likely not as meaningful as it feels. Wisdom recognizes that urgency is often a warning, not a signal to act. Discipline also protects a man from self-deception. Desire is skilled at creating justifications. It tells him he deserves happiness, that his situation is different, that no one will get hurt, or that following his feelings is a form of honesty. Wisdom challenges these stories. It asks difficult questions and refuses easy answers. A disciplined mind does not accept every emotional narrative as truth. In relationships, discipline preserves dignity. Acting on desire without restraint can lead to guilt, shame, and inner conflict. Even when no one else knows, the self knows. Wisdom understands that peace of mind is worth more than momentary pleasure. It values inner alignment over external validation. A man who practices discipline remains at peace with himself because his actions reflect his principles. Desire seeks gratification, but discipline seeks growth. Desire wants comfort, excitement, and escape. Discipline accepts discomfort as part of maturity. Wisdom emerges when a man chooses what strengthens him rather than what merely satisfies him. Over time, disciplined choices build self-respect and emotional stability, while impulsive choices often leave confusion and regret. Discipline in love also honors commitments. Promises lose meaning when desire is allowed to override them. Wisdom understands that commitments are not meant to be convenient. They are meant to be stable. A man who honors his word, even when it is difficult, develops trustworthiness, both in the eyes of others and within himself. This trust becomes the foundation of lasting relationships. Desire can make a man feel alive for a moment, but discipline makes him reliable for a lifetime. Wisdom values consistency over intensity. It understands that real fulfillment comes not from chasing feelings, but from building something that endures. Passion may fluctuate, but discipline remains steady. Through discipline, love becomes less about emotion and more about intention. A disciplined man does not deny desire, he manages it. He creates boundaries that protect what matters most. He knows that saying no to one thing often means saying yes to something greater. Wisdom teaches him that every choice has a cost, and discipline allows him to choose the cost he is willing to bear. Over time, discipline reshapes desire itself. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. The mind becomes clearer and emotions lose their urgency. Wisdom grows stronger with each restrained choice. A man who consistently chooses discipline over impulse develops emotional mastery. He is no longer controlled by every feeling that passes through him. Wisdom in love is not about perfection. It is about awareness, patience, and responsibility. It understands that desire is temporary, but the impact of decisions can be lasting. Through discipline, a man protects his relationships, his integrity, and his future. In choosing discipline over desire, he does not lose freedom. He gains control, clarity, and peace.